Africa is splitting into two, and here is why. As we can see, this is the area of Eastern Africa. A large crack stretching several kilometers made a sudden appearance recently in southwestern Kenya. A tear, which continues to grow, causing part of the Nairobi-Narok Highway to collapse. This is by Lucia Perez Diaz, postdoctorate researcher, Royal Holloway University of UK, on the conversation. Initially, the appearance of the crack was linked to tectonic activity along the East African Rift, the Great Rift Valley. But although geologists now think that this feature is most likely an erosional gully, questions remain as to why it has formed in the location that it did and whether its appearance is at all connected to the ongoing East African Rift. For example, the crack could be the result of the erosion of soft soils infilling an old rift-related fault. The Earth is an ever-changing planet. Even though in some respects change might almost be unnoticeable to us, plate tectonics is a good example of this, but every now and again something dramatic happens that leads to renewed questions about the African continent splitting into two. The Earth's lithosphere, formed by the crust and the upper part of the mantle, is broken up into a number of tectonic plates. These plates are not static, but they move relative to each other at varying speeds, gliding over a viscous asthenosphere. Exactly what mechanism or mechanisms are behind their movement is still debated, but are likely to include convection currents within the asthenosphere and the forces generated by the boundaries between the plates. These forces do not simply move the plates around. They can also cause plates to rupture, forming a rift and potentially leading to the creation of new plate boundaries. The East African Rift System is an example of where this is currently happening. The East African Rift Valley stretches over 3,000 kilometers from the Gulf of Aden in the north towards Zimbabwe in the south, splitting the African plate into two unequal parts, the Somali and the Nubian plates. Activity along the eastern branch of the Rift Valley running along Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania become evident when the large crack suddenly appeared in southwestern Kenya. Now, why does rifting happen? When the lithosphere is subject to, that's just right under the crust, when it's subject to horizontal extension forces, it will stretch, becoming thinner, and eventually it will rupture, leading to the formation of a rift valley. We have a rift valley in the Real Rift Zone, where we have the New Madrid seismic zone. We also have another rift valley in the mid-continental rift. That is a horseshoe-shaped magma. That's the magma underneath that area. The horseshoe-shaped magma is straddling the Great Lakes, and the western part of that horseshoe shape goes towards Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, all the way down to Texas, and it makes a western turn into New Mexico. And the eastern arm of that horseshoe goes around the Real Rift Zone, around the New Madrid seismic zone. So we have rift valleys in the United States as well. And we also have volcanoes there too. Now, this process here, this article says, the process of the Rift Valley is accompanied by surface manifestation here, we're talking about Africa, along the Rift Valley in the form of volcanism and seismic activity. Rifts are the initial stage of a continental breakup, and if successful, can lead to the formation of a new ocean basin. An example of a place on Earth where this is happening is the South Atlantic Ocean, which resulted from the breakup of South America and Africa around 138 million years ago. Ever notice how their coastlines match like pieces of the same puzzle? Continental rifting requires the existence of extensional forces great enough to break the lithosphere. The East African Rift is described as the active type of rift in which the source of these stresses lies in the circulation of the underlying mantle. Beneath this rift, the rise of a large mantle plume is doming the lithosphere upwards, causing it to weaken as a result of the increase in temperature, and undergo stretching and breaking by faulting. Evidence for the existence of this hotter than normal mantle plume has been found in geophysical data and is often referred to as the African superswell. This superplume is not only a widely accepted source of the pull-apart forces that are resulting in the formation of the Rift Valley, but has also been used to explain the anomalously high topography of the southern and eastern African plateaus. Breaking up isn't easy. Rifts exhibit a very distinctive topography characterized by a series of fault-bounded depressions surrounded by higher terrain. In the East African system, a series of aligned rift valleys separated from each other by large bounding faults can be clearly seen from space. Not all of these fractures formed at the same time, but followed a sequence starting in the Afar region in northern Ethiopia at around 30 million years ago and propagating southwards towards Zimbabwe at a mean rate of 2.5 to 5 centimeters a year, which is pretty fast. Although most of the time rifting is unnoticeable to us, the formation of new faults, fissures, and cracks, or renewed movement along old faults as the Nubian and Somali plates continue moving apart can result in earthquakes. However, in East Africa, most of this seismicity spread over a wide zone across the Rift Valley and is of relatively small magnitudes. Volcanism running alongside is a further surface manifestation of the ongoing process of continental breakup and the proximity of the hot molten asthenosphere to the surface. A timeline in action. The East African rift is unique in that it allows us to observe different stages of rifting along its length. To the south, where the rift is young, extension rates are low, and faulting occurs over a wide area, volcanism and seismicity are limited. Towards the Afar region, however, the entire Rift Valley floor is covered with volcanic rocks. This suggests that in this area, the lithosphere has thinned almost to the point of complete breakup. And where this happens, a new ocean will begin forming by the solidification of magma in the space created by the broken up plates. And eventually, over a period of tens of millions of years, seafloor spreading will progress along the entire length of the rift. The ocean will flood in, and as a result, the African continent will become smaller, and there will be a large island in the Indian Ocean composed of parts of Ethiopia and Somalia, including the Horn of Africa. Dramatic events, such as sudden motorway splitting faults, can give continental rifting a sense of urgency. However, rifting is a very slow process that most of the time goes about splitting Africa without anybody even noticing. This is on The Conversation. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.